10 banded movements that are going to 10x your workouts. We can get you to activate, stabilize, mobilize, get blood flow, prime your body ready to get the most out of your workouts. You'll see people walking around and doing all sorts of funny things with these bands. We're going to show you 10 effective ways to use the band to get the most out of your workouts.
So we're going to start with the band pull-aparts. Now this is a movement to target the upper back, traps and shoulders. Now as you can see now, Josh, if you turn around for me, he's pulling the band now across his, underneath the chest, across his chest there. What we see now, he's got an underhand grip. If you do it incorrectly now for us, overhand grip, we see people trying to pull the band nice and high above their chest, almost to neck, okay? Whilst it's still working the muscles, what we actually want to do is keep it nice and low. We have the right width of hand placement on the band so that actually the tension is there throughout the whole rep. And you get a good slow, strong squeeze where the band then goes below the chest line. So if you were to go too shallow in the band, okay, it's going to be really tight. Yes, you get a squeeze, but not the full range. And obviously too slack, the band, it becomes easy. And then the speed is probably there, but the muscle tension and what we want to achieve is lost. So to achieve the optimal rep, shall we say, we'll take an underhand grip, nice strong squeeze across underneath the chest line and keep the tension on throughout the whole rep. We are aiming for 10 reps as a warm up, okay? You can do it as long or as short as you need to, in between maybe some pulling movements and upper body movements, so we can actually achieve then, you can see the squeeze of the scapula, the shoulder blades together, that makes that rep effective. So a nice movement to lead on from the band pull aparts is over the tops, shoulder distractions, hip to hip. There's many names for them, okay? We're gonna actually just lift the band over the top of the head. Now, firstly, the grip has changed to an overhand grip, as you can see Josh has got there, and he's got a wide grip on the band. Now, if you go too shallow, too short a grip, that's going to be extremely hard to get over. He'll actually end up bending the elbows and forcing his shoulders into a rotation that probably is going to be quite painful. So we're going to find a nice wide grip, but make sure there's a stretch on the band. You want to engage the back and the shoulders and the arms to stretch that band. Keep a nice smooth arc over the top of the body. Now what we find a lot of people do is they start to then arch through that lower back. That could become quite painful. So we end up trying to then pin the rib cage almost down, so the sternum and rib cage down to keep in position and achieve a nice slow arc over the top, making sure the shoulders go through a full range of movement and warming up through the upper body. So the next movement, we've got the scapular retraction. So scap retract and can also come into a row. The main point being that we actually keep the arms fairly locked out and we don't bend the elbows so that we can achieve that squeeze through the upper back and shoulder blades. You want to use this to stabilize, to warm up and mobilize through the upper back for any pulling movements. It helps as well with a hinge movement if you've got that in your workout. As you can see now, Josh's arms, the elbows are very slightly bent, but he's not pulling through the arms. Okay? You can end up using biceps too much on this, especially because you're gripping the band. You can obviously going too fast, too hard. With that row, you lose the tension on the back. So we want to go, even if we hit the rows with the elbows bending, we want to keep a nice smooth tempo to the movement. Height-wise, the band is looped around and upright, and it's actually around about chest height, so sternum height there, okay, so that then the shoulders stay down, nicely tucked. If you don't have an upright, top tip, okay, you can stand on the band. Now you have to be able to achieve a nice hinge position through the hips here, nice flat lower back, but then you can row and squeeze through the upper back just like it was pinned around the upright. However, you're standing on the band to achieve that position there. To warm up for pressing, okay, we're going to use a band now to facilitate a more explosive push-up. If you're someone who can do a full push-up, now you can loop the band around the top of the back, as Josh has done there. It's just sitting under his shoulder blades there. And if you see where the tension is on the band, it becomes greater as he presses up from the floor. That gives a great explosive additional impact to that rep, that warm-up rep. Now, if you're someone who can't do a push-up and you want to actually build up your ability to do so, loop a band over the top of the spotter bar there, as we've got 2 bars across on the squat rack. The band now goes across and gives more help on the way up through that full rep. Now you can see there's opposite effect now, where there's more help on the way up, less at the top, versus where it was tougher at the top of the rep when it was around the back. So 2 variations on that you can use to increase or to help you on a press up. You can also add these in as little spices between your pressing sets, so maybe you're doing chest or shoulders or arms, okay? You can add these band resisted push-ups in there as well. So hitting the lower body now, we're gonna do a band resisted leg raise. The way we'll do this, we'll loop a band over underneath the shoe, okay, and grip it nice and strongly to both sides, keeping that bent knee and foot flat on the floor of the other leg. I'm going to extend the stretched leg. It's almost like a hamstring stretch, so you see it down all the way down the back of the leg there. Josh's going to try and keep the tension on that and then slowly lower and push against the resistance of the band. What happens if he goes A too fast or B lets his hips come up is he loses that tension. It becomes just a leg swing. So what you want to do is try and keep the hips, drive the hips down into the floor, keep the core tight, the shoulders and the back engaged. Obviously you're gripping onto the band, so there's some tension in the arms there. Pull the toe almost in towards the chin and then slowly lower and push against the resistance of that band. Now, if you let the knee bend, obviously that's disastrous, so keep the leg nice and strong and locked out, and then you'll feel that throughout the whole rep. Whilst we're down on the floor working the posterior chain, the lower body, we're going to show you a hip bridge to do with the band. Quite a funny one to get into, okay? It can go disastrously wrong, so make sure that the bands are trapped underneath the shoes throughout the whole rep for starters. The heels are driving into the floor, the band is across the hips, the waist, okay? And then you're driving up through, just as we did with the leg raise movements, okay? We're going to try and engage the upper back, the abs, the core, the midsection, push through the floor with the heels and bring the hips up, bridge. So there's a straight line between the knees, hips and shoulders, tucking the chin, squeezing at the top through the glutes, which is your bottom muscles, okay? And then slowly lowering back down. Now that band will obviously add some tension to this already tough movement. Next up, we're gonna add a hinge movement into this posterior chain warm up. The way we do that, stand on the band, grip it so there's enough tension on the band. Okay, you may have to shuffle the hands down a little bit, an inch or two to get the tension through the red band. The key being to push the hips back by keeping the legs as straight as possible. So almost a stiff leg deadlift. Chest goes over the top of the toes and you keep a nice arch through the lower back all the way up to the upper back. Keep the engagement through the shoulders, the arms, and obviously that upper back and traps. If you've done this in sequence, your upper body's probably already warmed up. The key being to keep the tension on the back of the legs throughout. As you stretch forward, then pull back up through, lifting the chest aggressively, and then feeling the squeeze at the top of that movement. Next up, we're going to utilize the band to add resistance to a split squat. This is effectively a static lunge. Now you see the band's underneath Josh's shoe there. He's got grip tension throughout the arms. And he's actually trying to grip the floor with his toes within that shoe to create tension and keep the band on the floor. Now that actually adds more tension throughout the whole leg muscle, gives you stability through the knees, and actually makes the rep harder. So when you come to lunges, you'll be more stable when you actually add weight and resistance to that movement. Now, a common mistake with the split squat when we've got weight or even just body weight is people leaning way too far forward, the knee coming right the way over the toe, the heel almost raising off the floor, and the weight shifting completely forward on that front foot. So what the band does, it helps us create the tension throughout not just that front foot, but also the glute of the back leg. Okay, so that trailing leg there, the glute is then having to squeeze on. The band tension, obviously, he's going to try and pull Josh forward, so he's actually keeping his chest up and back throughout the whole rep. As you can see then with the front leg, the knees in a nice solid position throughout, the foot is flat on the floor, and the rep as a whole is balanced and controlled. As we move now down to the floor moves, we're going to focus on the core, the abs, the midsection, but as you'll find, it's not just those muscles that work in this. First off, we get into a high plank position. That is actually at the top of a push-up, where not on the forearms, but on the hands, okay, the wrists. Drawing that band in, you're going to row, single arm obviously working at the same time as the stabilized position through the rest of the 3 points of the body. Josh's feet were actually quite wide there, which is perfect, because if they're narrow, you can see he's actually going to try and twist over to one side to row that band in. So going with a nice hip width or wider, shoulder width feet position. Same with the arms, okay, then he's going to draw the elbow in, not pull with the bicep, but actually just squeeze through the lat, the upper back, whilst trying to keep the hips level, tense through the legs, the midsection, the core, the shoulders, the whole body is working here, okay? If you can't hold that position again, you can also drop to the knees and still achieve that same result by keeping the similar position, but with the knees rested, same width through the upper body and the lower body, and also drawing in through the lat, that arm, that right side working. Obviously doing both sides, you'll get the full range of that movement. Whilst we're down in this position and the band is set up in that low anchor point there, we're going to show you a rotational movement with this now. So, same position to start with, but now as you can see Josh from this angle, you can see him drop his shoulder. His right shoulder goes underneath the body. His hips start to turn a bit. He can resist against that with a nice wide foot position, as you can see through that shot there, and draw the band underneath. So he's almost getting a stretch to then a draw in of the elbow up high as well. Squeeze through, keep that stability in the left arm as well. There will be a slight flex in the elbow, but obviously you want to keep that nice and strong. Maintaining the rest of the position, the stabilization through the hips, the legs, the core, the midsection. And again, we've got the alternative of dropping to the knees. Still aim for that stretch. As you drop the arm under, the band's going to draw the hand towards the upright. pull up through, using that midsection, the upper back, the core, all the way through that rep to drive the elbow high.
So, as hopefully you've just watched through there, that was 10 movements. Now those 10 movements, if you want to get started and unsure when to do it and how to do it, just do 10 repetitions, try it. Maybe do it before starting the sessions, this way we can get real good connection to the muscles, so we can get the blood flow. As you can see, after doing that, it's actually a fairly good workout in itself. Now you don't have to do every single one, every single time. As we explained in the workouts, you can put them in supersets, maybe do it as a priming, maybe just do a couple of the upper bodies if you're doing a pushing or a pulling session, or maybe just work on a weakness. So if you're somebody who finds themselves really rounded over, a lot of those pulling ones, drawing back can be a great thing. Simple piece of equipment, you can use it anywhere, very good to do either at home, in the gym, whatever works best for you, but do this, it's gonna really amp up your workouts and get much more out of them.